All right. Hey, you're back. All righty. Let's see what's going on. Steve here from The Buried Life. You can check out that over there. That's on YouTube. We're posting these videos, and for those of you who don't know, a little bit of background. Me, my wife, we sold everything in the United States: house, car, truck, everything in the kitchen junk drawer. We put stuff in a couple of suitcases, and now we're retired in Korea. So we're retired overseas. And I've done a lot of videos about our visas, our experiences in apartment hunting, buying an apartment, how different it is, Korean banking. I'm going to do some more videos on the differences of what it's like here in Korea versus, yeah, being in the United States and vice versa, or however you want to look at it. But recently, there are some interesting things that happen when you retire overseas. And this right here, doctors going on strike, is something that it's not unusual for people that are getting underpaid to say, hey, I think, that band together and say, hey, we need better working conditions. We need more pay. We haven't had a pay increase for, X amount of years or whatever, because the increased workload and increased cost of expenses and goods and services and so on. Nothing wrong with that. But here in Korea, the doctors are striking, and it is putting an undue burden and is even putting people's lives at risk. It's putting people in positions of not getting surgeries, not getting chemotherapy, not getting, that's seriously bad. If you have somebody who is in chronic pain that can't get spinal surgeries, if you're getting people that can't get their cancer treatment or cancer surgery, and you're getting kicked out of the hospital because the doctors are on strike, yeah, that seems like a bad thing. So we're going to go over this. Now, if you don't know what I'm talking about, I'm going to go over some information that I went over yesterday because this is like day 3 of the strike. And basically, Korea has the lowest doctor to patient ratio. It's the lowest in all the developed countries. So that means they are really overworked. And other articles that I've read on this subject talked about how in Korea, doctors will see 100 plus patients a day. And how in doing that, doctors usually only see a patient for 3 to 4 minutes. So in other words, it's this giant it's like a busy train or bus station during rush hour and holidays that people are going in, they go out, they go in, they go out, and there's very little time for a doctor to even get how much of a medical background can you get on somebody when your entire visit is only 3 to 4 minutes? Yeah, it just doesn't, it just doesn't make sense. So anyway, it ends up that these doctors, they were complaining in this doctor coalition, we're going to say. It's not what it's called, but it's just, the representatives that are representing these doctors, and it's very far reaching, are saying that doctors are being overworked. And so what the Korean government did is say, okay, well, it's overworked. People are overworked. They're working, resident doctors our student doctors are working 80 to 100 plus hours a week. They're working 6 days a week, 1 day off. And that's way too much. You got burnout. How many bad decisions can occur with, working that many hours? And yet, so the Korean government said, okay, well, what we want to do is address the fact that we need more doctors because we have an aging population. The largest segment of the Korean population is the aging population. And as you age, you need more medical care. So you need more medical appointments. And they just, when you get over 100 patients a day, it kind of tells me you need some more doctors. So the Korean government says, okay, we're gonna try to boost the pay for low-paying doctors like pediatricians and some other things, and then try to get more doctors to go into rural areas or small towns, because here in Korea, a lot of the doctors want to go to Seoul. A lot of the doctors want to go to the huge cities and get the big pay. There's some of the highest paid occupations in Korea as being a doctor. And if you have your own private practice, like a plastic surgeon, I mean, the sky's the limit. It is just insane. But we're just talking about hospitals. We're talking about, surgeons, all of the regular stuff that you would see in a hospital. Not necessarily a GP. They don't really have GPs here in Korea. So anyway, what happens is these doctors and the Doctors Coalition, which reminds me of the Jimmy Hoffa Union, it's getting corrupt type of thing, are saying, nope, we don't want more doctors. And it's like, we want better working conditions. Okay, so you want better working conditions and you're working 80 to 100 plus hours a week and you're complaining that you don't have time off, but you don't want more doctors to alleviate the massive overwork and the bad medicine, the bad, 3 or 4 minutes that people get. I mean, a lot of things can be missed, in my opinion. Now, with that being said, our experience here in the medical world here in Korea of going to Korean hospitals has been really, really good. Did my eye surgery, retina detachment, retinal tears, cataract surgery, so on and so forth. We've had a really good experience with all of that. But now the doctors, the mafia, Hoffa doctor representatives say, no, we don't want more doctors, but we want more senior staff, and more senior staff get more money. So there seems to be a good old boy system in play here. But the doctors are saying, hey, they just walked off the job. And as of yesterday, there was like 8,800 doctors that filled out and turned in their resignation letters. There was Korean news that showed these doctors taking off their white lab coats. And your white lab coat is your doctor's coat is really a symbol of all of the years of college that you spent getting your bachelor's, your pre-med, your 4 years of going to medical school, and then going, boom, now you've got your white coat. And what these people did was take their white coat off and put it on the ground as it was raining and saying, I'm leaving because, and you're overworked, but you don't want more doctors, and so you're going to leave and abandon your post. That is absolutely insane. So there's puppet masters that are guiding this situation, and it goes even deeper. A little bit more background. How far-reaching are the Jimmy Hoffa, doctors, representatives and their coalition? How much reach do they have? They have so much reach that it even extends into the medical schools themselves. Talk about shady. Eminem has nothing on these guys here, because what ends up happening is that the medical schools are saying, no, we don't want to open and have more medical students because it will create competition amongst the doctors. In other words, it's all about money, and they don't want to share their piece of the pie, which is weird because the medical school would get more money. So who's really pulling the strings? Well, it's these Jimmy Hoffa, crooked doctors representatives who want more senior staff, and they don't want more doctors. So their reach goes so far-reaching into the medical school that 46% of medical school students aren't showing up to class. They're skipping a semester. And it's like, how asinine is that? I tell you, it's really insane. So we're going to go over some more information, and yeah, it's just, the thing that gets me is that what are the options? So in my last video, you can watch that. It's a long video. I know it's long and rambling and boring, but Korean Doctors Association, or the mafia, the doctor mafia that they have over here, has done a series of strikes over time, and to the point where in the year 2000, 70% of the doctors walked off the job. And if they didn't, and why did they walk off the job? Because the Korean government wanted more doctors. The exact same situation. And then a few other times throughout history, the doctors did the same thing. It's, no, we don't want that. We don't want more doctors. We want to keep the same level of doctors, and they actually reduce the number of people that can become doctors. It's insane. It doesn't make sense. And then in 2014, the government wanted to capitalize on telemedicine, because telemedicine would allow doctors to give prescriptions and do so. And a lot of great things that we saw, like during COVID, people that can't show up to a hospital because of the restrictions and so on and so forth, but still get medical care, still get refills, still get prescriptions, still get treatment, seeing a psychologist or whatever, or, can all be done over telemedicine. Well, the Doctors Mafia Coalition, they rejected that as well. So we know it's not about improving the technology of working conditions and so on and so forth to see more people and so people can get better care in rural areas and so on and so forth. It's not about that. It's entirely about money. And so the Korean government has said that they have ordered Korean doctors to go back to work. Now the Korean doctors, so they throw the ball into the doctors' court. The doctors got the ball and they're saying, no, we're not. So they throw the ball back. Korean government gets the ball and they said, well, if you don't show up to work, you're going to get arrested. So they throw the ball back and the doctors get this and they're like, yeah, no, we're not showing back up to work until you meet our demands. There's no negotiation. And it's like, so they throw the ball back into the government. The government gets it and says, well, there's a law here in Korea that you can do no harm and that by quitting and you put people's lives in danger, you can be arrested and we can take your license to practice medicine, tear it up, and where are you going to be then? So they throw the ball back into the doctors' courts. The doctors get the ball, and they're like, yeah, I don't think we're going to do that. So that's currently where we're at. In response to this, to the lack of doctors, and it's only been a few days, like I said, people have been denied surgeries, people have been getting kicked out of hospitals, they've been denied appointments, cancer treatments, all of that stuff. I mean, it has really upended medical care here in Korea. And like I said, it's almost like 9,000 doctors have turned in their resignation. Not saying, we're just going on strike. No, they signed and said they resigned, which doesn't make any sense. So the Korean government can follow through on their demands of arresting these doctors, which in my opinion, I think would be a good thing. When you put people's lives at risk for money, for senior doctors and senior positions, in other words, kind of like administration, you're not looking after the welfare of the people. And all of these big people at the top of this doctors mafia thing are puppet masters, and they have their strings, into the current doctors, student doctors. They have their fingers and their tentacles into the medical school to where 46% of them decide to stop going to medical school. And there's more on that. So I think that's what Korea should do. They need to stop this BS of doctors holding the citizens, their own fellow people, hostage, and basically it's blackmail of saying, okay, well, if you don't give me what I want, and we don't want more doctors, but we want more money, even though it's the highest paid profession in Korea, we're just not going to give any care. Forget about the Hippocratic Oath, of do no harm and heal and blah, 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 and have professionalism and so on. And we'll go over that. It needs to stop. So if the government caves, that means that the doctors, which the government has caved before in the past, they have free rule. It's like a spoiled brat. And unfortunately, I am amazed because I've never seen or heard of this in any country around the world. And my wife was saying the same thing. And even on the Korean news, on different news sources in Korea and foreign news sources, they said they've never seen anything like this. This has never happened in any other country like this, to where the doctors say, we're just going to get up and quit. And we're being so overworked, but we don't want more doctors. How asinine is that? So anyway, they could arrest these doctors, they could suspend their licenses, and so they can't practice medicine. So where would that leave these, currently 9,000 doctors? You have medical bills. I mean, you have student loans for your school. And how are you going to pay those loans off, those student loans? If you can't be a doctor, how are you going to pay for that super nice apartment that you have in Seoul or wherever you live, and how are you going to pay for that Mercedes or that BMW or whatever super nice car and the super expensive clothes and watches? How are you going to pay for all that now? Where are you going to get a job if you cannot get a job in the healthcare industry. Yeah, that's really, I don't think the doctors are thinking this through. It's not for the benefit of them of going on strike. It's for the benefit of the doctors mafia that is in charge, that is going to be making the money. Because remember, they don't want more doctors, even though it shows that they need more doctors, they're being overworked, they're complaining about being overworked, and they're only spending minimal time with patients. So, yeah, the other option along with this is, so what will we do? Okay, well, you fire the people that are stupid, and you'll have to open up the medical schools, and somehow, the fact that the tentacles of the doctor mafia get into the medical schools, that about half of them quit because of this, shows you how corrupt it is. So that would take a long period of time to get more doctors in, and they're even short as it is now. It is really short. Excuse me. If you go to a Korean hospital, like the big hospitals in Seoul and like places like that, it's like a crowded bus station during rush hour, or subway during rush hour in like New York or whatever. It's just, or Japan. It's like people everywhere. It's absolutely insane. And yeah, it's only going to get worse. People travel hours and hours on trains and taxis and buses to get to appointments because there's not enough doctors in the areas of where they live, because everybody wants to be in Seoul, and that's kind of the hub of the doctor mafia. So anyway, so in response to this, if you fire all these doctors, what are you going to do? I was thinking about this. My wife and I were talking about it. It's like, well, if the Korean government fires all of these doctors that are just doing stupid, which they are, they're putting people at risk because of their actions, what do? My advice would be to hire doctors from other countries that don't get paid as much as Korean doctors. So if you have a doctor that is a doctor in India or some other country, developing country, or country that is in lower economic status than Korea, I would, as the Korean government, I would put out a curtain call and say, hey, if you're a doctor and if you can prove that you went, and you'll have to be some certification tests or boards or things like that, so that their skills are transferred over. And yeah, we might have to hire some translators and stuff like that, but it's better to have a translator and have a doctor than not have enough doctors. And yeah, it just makes sense. And then you pay these doctors, an amount that is more than what they're making in their home country. So, you give tax benefits, you make it a thing to where they can get residency here. You can give them a lot of benefits to make it really, really just like, wow, yeah, I think I'm going to go to Korea and be a doctor over there. Yeah, there's some issues that would need to be worked out. But if there's doctors that don't want and refuse to work and serve in the Hippocratic Oath that they swore to uphold, and there's other doctors from other countries that are getting paid less, they would love to come to Korea and fill those spots. And that would be a great way to get more doctors into the country. Now, it's not unusual for Korea to hire foreigners to do certain jobs and so on and so forth, but I think this is a very reasonable expectation. Now, the other option is that the government just caves to this doctor mafia coalition. It just, excuse me, I hope I don't have to go see a doctor. It is, ooh. But my wife and I were watching the news and watching the representatives of this doctor mafia coalition speak and talk. It is totally insane. It is, and we were talking about it as we were going to the gym. Actually, when we were done with the gym and we're driving, and it was like, man, what is going on? And I said, this is almost, they're acting like a dangerous religious cult. And my wife is like, bingo, you got it. This Dr. Mafia coalition and all these people that support this of just walking off the job and leaving, their own citizens hanging to illness, death, so on and so forth, and not taking care of them health-wise, and they're getting paid. You're getting paid to not do your job. And of course, I would suggest, let's kind of backtrack a little bit. If you're put in your resignation letter, you should not get paid. It's simple as that. And if you get fired, no one is going to hire a doctor that went on strike, because the majority of the Korean people here are like, no, that's BS. That's wrong. That's, people getting their cancer treatments canceled, and people not knowing on it. We can just go down that rabbit hole a lot. So the other option is that the government caves to the whims of the spoiled brat mafia doctor coalition and kick the can down the road and say, oh, okay, well, we're not going to increase the amount of doctors we're going to have, which is insane. Where does that leave the Korean people? The everyday working people, those are the people that are going to suffer. And the other people that are going to suffer are the military people, kind of like myself, retired military, who have retired here in Korea. That will have an adverse effect on our medical appointments, our treatment, just like the Korean people, and that's not right. But then there's also another segment demographic of people that will be affected by that, and that is our military personnel that are assigned to Korea and their family members and contractors. And I mean, there's a ton of people. Where we live, we are close to Camp Humphreys, Korea. Now, Camp Humphreys is a big base, and since 121 and Yongsan is closed, and they've kind of brought all the military forces, a lot of them, down to Camp Humphreys. There's still some units up north, but a lot of them have come down to Camp Humphreys. So it is the largest military base overseas in the world. There's currently like 35,000 here at Camp Humphreys. And we're talking soldiers, families, contractors, support personnel, so on and so forth. And it's going to go up over time to, I've read articles where it said like 40,000, 45,000, which is insane. Why does this affect them? Because at the military hospital on Camp Humphreys, Brian D. Allgood Hospital, they're understaffed as well. So it's hard for service members to get appointments at the hospital. Emergency room is overrun. They don't have enough staff. They don't have enough doctors. You can read it on the Facebook groups and just see it. I mean, we see it all the time. And so people, military service members, their families, contractors, and so on, that use Brian D. Allgood hospitals, and I can't even use it because it's on a space available basis as a retiree, which is fine. But the problem is they don't have any space available because they don't have enough doctors to support the military personnel, let alone the retirees. So we have to go to the Korean hospitals. But the military personnel and their families and contractors, they get referred out to Korean hospitals for a lot of stuff. Now, way back in the day when I was in the military, I retired in 2005, I had gotten referrals to go to Korean hospitals, and it wasn't really that big of a thing. There wasn't really a lot of them. There were some things that, okay, yeah. But now, from what I'm reading and talking to people, the referrals that go from the military hospital on base to off-base Korean hospitals and specialties and so on and so forth is drastically, it has gone up exponentially. So now this is going to be cut off at the knees, and that's going to affect the readiness of the forces here in Korea. It's going to affect their families, and that's not good either. So, there's some options there. What are the options? Now, what are the people going to do? The people who are suffering, the citizens of Korea, the everyday working people, for people that can't get care here in Korea, they have the option of go to Japan and pay for treatment, or, go to some surrounding countries like Laos or Vietnam or Thailand, where medical tourism is really, really big. I mean, medical tourism is big here in Korea, mostly for plastic surgeons and things like that, but it's also big in medical tourism for just regular care. So now, because the doctor mafia coalition doesn't want more doctors because they want the pie, they want the whole pie. They don't want just a slice of the pie. They want more and more of the pie until they get the whole thing. And if we don't cave to their demands, they're just going to stop working. That's going to affect medical tourism into Korea, so that's going to affect the economy as a whole. And so really, I see this as blackmail. this doctor strike as being blackmail, and that should not be, you know. Now, what happens if well, what about these doctors who are going on strike, and what if their family members need surgery, and oh, I'm pretty sure they're going to get surgery. There's the good old boy system. But again, this is at the higher levels. For the lower level residency doctors and things like that turned into resignations, yeah, you just put your own family members at risk. So that doesn't even make sense. So what happens to the Hippocratic Oath? When you become a doctor, to my knowledge, all doctors take an oath of this version of saying, basically do no harm. But I wanted to read it here. And that these doctors who are refusing to work, and the administration of the doctor mafia, whatever people, has put such a burden in putting people's lives at risk that they forgot the oath that they swore. And I want to read that. It says, by all that I hold highest, I promise my patients competence, integrity, candor, personal commitment to their best interest, compassion, and absolute discretion and confidentiality within the law. I shall do by my patients as I would be done by. Shall obtain consultation whenever I or they desire, shall include them to the extent they wish in all important decisions, and shall minimize suffering whenever a cure cannot be obtained, understanding that a dignified death is an important goal in everyone's life. I shall try to establish a friendly relationship with my patients and accept each one in a non-judgmental manner, appreciating the validity, still morning here, worth of different value systems, and according to each person a full measure of human dignity. I shall charge only for my professional services and shall not profit financially in any other way as a result of the advice and care I render my patients. I shall provide advice and encouragement for my patients in their efforts to sustain their own health. I shall work with my profession to improve the quality of medical care and to improve the public health, but I shall not let any lesser public or professional consideration interfere with my primary commitment to provide the best and the most appropriate care available to each of my patients. To the extent that I live by these precepts, I shall be a worthy physician. There's different versions of the Hippocratic Oath, but basically that's what it is, that you shall be a doctor and you shall give care, and that is your job. And seeing that in Korea, doctors are the highest paid position in Korea, you can't say that you're working for peanuts and that's why you walked off the job. Because this is putting undue work burdens upon other people. And you might say, well, who is this? Well, obviously it's the hospitals. They're turning people away, which, oh, by the way, now it's going to cut into the profits of the hospitals as well. Again, this is a blackmail ploy of saying, hey, well, if we don't come back to work, the hospital's not going to make money. Medical tourism's not going to, you're going to take a dip in the economy because of that, because we're on strike. It has such far-reaching effects. It's crazy. And I don't know why the Korean government caved to this before in the past. But now the burden is even greater. People have to travel to hospitals hours and hours on, trains and taxis and things like that to get to appointments to see doctors, because everything is kind of around these major cities. And the government wants more doctors, and they want to raise the prices of the pay of doctors so that they'll go into rural areas, smaller cities, smaller towns, and so on and so forth. But this Mafia Doctor Coalition says, no, we're going to go on strike. So the response now by the Korean government is they're going to open up military hospitals so that they will see Korean civilians. And they're going to open up law enforcement hospitals. I didn't know there was a law enforcement hospital, but apparently they have police hospitals that treat nothing but the police. So they're going to open those up to civilians to be seen as a way to deal with this bullshit. Now, the other thing that they end up having is now they're having nurses and PAs, physician's assistants, taking on a greater role in doing more work, and they're being overworked as well. But now they're going, well, wait a second. We can't make decisions that doctors make. That puts us in a liability. So there's talks about that there's things that we can't do, and we'll be held liable, and so on and so forth. So again, this whole thing is just a blackmail scheme, in my opinion, and that's very important to state. My opinion. And from the information that I see as a foreigner, maybe I'm missing something, but my wife sees the exact same thing, that this is horrible. A lot of the Korean people, the majority of them, think that this is crazy, that this should never happen, especially when you're the highest paid profession in the country and you're complaining about long work hours, but you don't want more doctors. There's no amount of technology, especially when you refuse that technology in the past. So, yeah, it's just absolutely crazy on what we end up seeing. And what are the options? And how long is this going to go on? And this has only been a few days. They've had almost 10,000 doctors turn in their resignations. So who's being hurt? It's the everyday normal people. You're going to have some people that make a lot of money that are going to be able to go to Thailand or other countries or Japan to get medical care or surgeries that they need, or cancer treatments or whatever. But unfortunately, the everyday working people who can't afford that, they're going to be stuck, and their lives are going to be put at risk. And we watched the news again last night, seeing the number of people that patients that are getting kicked out of hospitals. They're being refused cancer treatments and chemotherapy and so on and so forth. They're doing the exact opposite of what these doctors swore when they graduated medical school to become a doctor, and even during their residency. Now, it should be noted that as you're a resident, you're going to have some shitty hours. There's just no way around it, even in the United States. And I know this for a fact because my daughter's a doctor, and she went to, she did pre-med, she did medical school. It was pretty rough for her. She got into residency, and it's some insane hours with, not a lot of time off. But that seems to be a cost thing, is that, hospitals don't want to spend more money for more resident doctors or doctors as a whole. And so it's kind of on this balance and this line. But to go to the place of where, the doctors say, hey, yeah, we're going to walk off unless you pay us more money. Oh, and we don't want more doctors. That just shows you the lunacy of this situation. And the people are going to, the everyday people, they're fellow Korean citizens. Who cares about the foreigners? Let's leave the foreigners out of this. But your own citizens of your own country, that you have so much greed and narcissism and egotist. You're such an egotist that I'm going to go on strike without regard to hurting your fellow citizens. It makes absolutely no sense. So this Korean Mafia Coalition thing is what I'm calling it now. The Korean Mafia Doctor Coalition really has their fingers deep, and there's, I bet you, a bag of donuts that that there is a lot of corruption going on. And this is similar to what I see in the United States when we had unions back in the United States. Before we had unions, employees were being abused by their employers. They were being overworked, underpaid, no benefits, blah, 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 and all that. And it was a really terrible time. Then unions band together. A bunch of people got together, and they, said, hey, well, we're going to go on strike if we don't get a living wage, if we don't get better conditions, if we don't get more time off, and so on and so forth. And that was good. And then, so unions were good for a while. And then there was this line to where the union stepped over that line and went into the area of corruption and basically became blackmailers that said, oh, well, if you don't cave to our demands, we're going to halt production and we're not going to work, and your business is going to go out of business. Oh, and by the way, if you don't support or put in for this project, because of political this and that, or, if you don't pull out of this project because of somebody else, if another union is supposed to get this project, we're going to go on strike, and guess what? Your business is going to go under. So again, it became something that was needed, and then it was good, and then it became corrupt. And I think that's what we're seeing here in Korea with the doctors' medical mafia coalition thing that we got going on. When you complain so much that doctors are being overworked, but you don't want more doctors, that tells me all I need to know. It's they say, oh well, the government hasn't proven. This actual representative for the doctors was on the news, and they did an interview with this guy, and he's basically saying, yeah, oh well, the government does. We don't need more doctors, and it's like, you only have the same amount of doctors for the last 15, 20 years, and the population is getting older, and they need more appointments, and when you only see patients for 3-4 minutes at a time, and it keeps going down, then the residents are complaining that they only get 1 day off a week, they're working 100 hours, maybe 20-hour work days, you're doing doubles, and so on and so forth, but no, we don't need more doctors. But the Korean government says, hey, we're going to inject $7.4 billion into, the hospitals and the doctors and so on and so forth. But this representative says, no, we need it for more senior staff. So in other words, it's the bigwigs that want it. It's the good old boy system, and none of that will filter down to the residents who are actually resident doctors who are actually doing the work, working 20-hour days, working 100-plus hours a week, seeing 100-plus patients a day to where they can't even see straight, or let alone get an accurate patient history in the amount of time that they can see patients. Thankfully for me and our experience here in Korea, it's here's what's going on. Here's the problem I have. I'm real succinct. I'm real, boom, here's the problem. Boom, I need medication. I need this, I need that, or whatever. And they're like, okay, well, take this, try this for a month, come back, and we'll get you on a plan. We'll see how the medication reacts, because they can't just go off of, what I say, or even if the prescriptions that I had in the United States, I got to do their little assessment thing. So basically, yeah, it's about 5 minutes, and boom, here you go. You're done. Come back in 30 days, and we'll see how the medication goes. And if it works well, I'll give you a refill. But that's just a simple thing. But even that 3 or 4 minutes, it's not enough, because there are some other things that the doctor should be asking. Well, have you had any problems? What other medications are you taking? Are there going to be complications with these medications, and do they have bad interaction with each other? So the level of care is good, but the level of care is also lacking in some ways. But as far as the facilities and the technology and things that I have seen in Korea, the staff are always nice and kind. I've never had a staff or a nurse or anybody in a Korean hospital roll their eyes, like I've seen in the United States. Super clean. It's just crowded as hell. And now it's going to get even worse. So that's what we got going on. We'll try to keep this video a little bit shorter than the previous one, which was like over an hour and a half, or whatever it was. But yeah, those are the options. The Korean government can cave to the demands of the mafia doctor coalition. They can fire the doctors, and then in the meantime, they should probably hire some other doctors from other countries that aren't making as much money and aren't appreciated as much as they will be in here in Korea. The doctors who get their licenses suspended, who's going to hire you? If you can't be a doctor and you can't work in the healthcare system, I don't think these people think it through. Honestly, it's like you have student loans for your medical school that you need to pay off, and now you're not getting paid as a doctor, so you can't pay. That's now what's going to happen then. So now the far-reaching effects of this is going to be that the people and the lending institutions, the investors that invest into people to be doctors, are going to shrink back and say, whoa, well, we used to invest in you guys, and now you did stupid, and now you're fired, and now I can't get I can't get the money that I loaned you back. Yeah, so what's going to happen? once you burn yourself on the stove, you're not going to try to burn yourself on the stove again. So they're going to shrink back, and they're not going to give as many loans because they had a bad experience of stupidity like this. So yeah, maybe there'll be some negotiation. Each side is saying no at this point. That could change, but yeah, overall, this whole situation is just insane for a developed country. Such a developed country as Korea is, with all the advancements in medicine and technology and how far they've come from the Korean War, is just amazing. It is a testament to the hard work and the intelligence of the Korean people and their determination as a whole. It's just amazing. And now it seems we've gone in the other direction, and the doctors are, oh, screw it, and the puppet masters are pulling the strings of these resident doctors. You think, I know in the United States, resident doctors are the ones that are saying we should have more people so I don't have to work 80 to 100 hours a week, so that I can have 2 days off a week to sleep. And, it's a thing. So for the Korean doctors and this medical coalition mafia thing that they got going on, whoever is pulling the strings saying, oh, we don't need more doctors, that is just so, it reminds me of the brainwashing that happens in a dangerous religious cult. It really does. It's like no matter the reality that is around, whatever the puppet master says, whatever the cult leader says, that is their reality. And these people, these doctors, are believing it hook, line, and sinker, and it's only hurting their fellow Korean citizens. I mean, it used to be a time where Korea was like, if your kid grew up to be a doctor or a lawyer or a professional, some of the, a high prestigious, high paying job, it brought pride and honor to your family. If you're one of those doctors that filled out their resignation, I would hate to be your parent because you're going against your own people. It's there's a difference of being used and abused, and then not, and saying, we need more people, we need more staff so we can have better care for and see more people. That's an entirely different subject than saying we're being used and abused, we have too many hours, but we don't want more doctors. One is common sense, one is lunacy. And unfortunately, I go back from time to time to say that the movie Idiocracy, which was a comedy back in the day, is becoming a documentary. And it definitely applies to the United States, but I'm seeing with this definitely applies as Idiocracy, as something you would see as a total lack of intelligence and common sense. And, people just, these Korean doctors, resident doctors that are quitting and resigning and forget the Hippocratic Oath, forget even though I'm the highest paid profession around, and we're being overworked, we don't want more doctors. It's like they're the smartest dumb people I have seen in a long time. So, yeah. What do you think about this? I know there's not a lot of people who live in Korea like me, but if something like this happened in the United States, I mean, you got a hard enough time in the United States where people are going to emergency rooms for their kids because they can't see doctors because, so most in urgent care, they'll go to urgent care, but there's emergency rooms on military bases to where families cannot get regular appointments because they're so understaffed, so they go to the emergency room for coughs and sniffles and strep throat and so on and so forth, for their kids or themselves because they can't get the medical care because they're understaffed. So what is the solution? Hire more staff. It's that simple. Make some concessions and treat your people. In Korea, unfortunately, this doctor mafia coalition thing that they got going on, yeah, it's follow the money because it's corrupt as all get out. So what would happen if you're in the country that you're in if doctors did this? How would you feel? How would you feel if you had somebody who's supposed to get an operation, life-saving operation or cancer operation or chemotherapy or, I don't know, but far-reaching dialysis. Now you got people. There was news reports and interviews of patients that were being kicked out of hospitals that are now had to go try to find another hospital that had doctors so that they could be treated for some pretty serious things. I, what would you do? What would you think? Do you think the doctors are in the right? Do you think the citizens are right? Do you think the government is right? Personally, at this stage of the game, we think that the government is right in saying that these doctors that are going on strike and going against the Hippocratic Oath they're wrong. And especially the biggest indicator of this is that they don't want more doctors. Matter of fact, they want to reduce the amount of doctors in the future, which makes no sense at all whatsoever, because that just means it's going to be more of this assembly line. See a patient for 2 or 3 minutes and then that's it. Korea has gone so far. They got like 52 million people here in Korea, and they do an awesome job of getting people through the system of getting tests, where in the United States, you might have 1 or 2 testing stations for, like your eyes or this or that or whatever. In Korea, you will have, 7, 8, 10 different stations that all do the exact same test, because the huge amount of patients that they have, that's what they have to do. And then they go see the doctor. So you have a ton of people going through all these testing stations or getting blood draws or eyes checked or this or that or whatever. And then, it's really assembly line type of medicine, which works great with what they have, but it's at the breaking point right now. And especially with the doctors striking and saying they don't want more people, that makes absolutely no sense. So anyway, stop rambling, comment section, like, subscribe. That would be appreciated. It really would. I'm begging. If you learned something or knew that you didn't know before about being retired overseas or what's happening here in Korea, I would appreciate that. So yeah, put it in the comment section down below and we'll see what happens with this, because it's crazy. And it's only like day 3. So it'll be very interesting to see what happens next. And we'll see you then. Peace.